This is the true story of the world's most feared ghost ship, the Flying Dutchman. Our story begins in the 1600s, the golden age of sail. The Dutch East India Company ruled the seas, their ships braving treacherous routes to bring back treasures from the far corners of the world. But these voyages were perilous. Brutal storms claimed countless vessels, and mortality rates were terrifyingly high. It was an era of brave men, driven by greed and glory. Among them was a captain named Hendrik van der Decken, a figure now etched into maritime lore, known even then for being reckless, ambitious, and utterly obsessed with speed. He commanded a magnificent vessel, and on one fateful journey, he found himself battling a furious storm off the southern tip of Africa, the notoriously dangerous Cape of Good Hope. Witnesses from nearby ships, those fortunate enough to survive the tempest, later testified to seeing van der Decken, his ship, attempting an insane maneuver, trying to round the cape in the heart of the gale. According to maritime journals from that period, Captain van der Decken was last seen on his quarterdeck, drenched and defiant, shouting a blasphemous oath into the wind. He vowed that he would round the cape, even if it took him until doomsday. His ship was never seen again, at least not in the world of the living. For the next century, stories circulated among sailors. Whispers of a spectral ship seen glowing in the fog. But it wasn't until the 1700s that these whispers started appearing in official records. Royal Navy logs began to reference a spectral Dutch vessel that would appear only during the fiercest storms, a bad omen sailing through impossible weather. In the 1790s, the crew of a British frigate reported a truly chilling encounter. They saw a ship sailing directly against the wind, its sails full, its hull glowing with a faint, sickly light. Just as they braced for a collision, it vanished without a trace. Several sailors from that frigate swore under oath that they saw spectral crew members on its deck, waving desperately, their faces frozen in silent screams. The 19th century brought even more detailed and credible documentation. In 1835, the logs of the HM's Leven recorded a meticulous sighting of the Flying Dutchman near the Cape, describing its antique rigging and ethereal glow. But the most famous incident occurred in 1881, an encounter witnessed by none other than Prince George of Wales, the future King George V of England. His personal naval log, which maritime historians confirm is authentic, describes the event in chilling detail. In the dead of night, a phantom ship appeared, bathed in a strange red light. It crossed their bow, so close they could almost see its phantom crew. Then, as suddenly as it appeared, it was gone. The encounter left the crew deeply unsettled. The next morning, the sailor who had first spotted the ghostly vessel fell from the rigging to his death on the deck below. By the late 1800s, superstition had hardened into pure terror. Seeing the Flying Dutchman was no longer just a strange tale. It was considered a guaranteed death omen. Seasoned crews would mutiny rather than sail through the waters of the Cape during bad weather. The fear was so palpable, it can be traced in financial records. Marine insurance ledgers from the era show a significant spike in claims from shipping companies, filed for vessels that had to reroute their entire journey, adding weeks and massive costs, all to avoid the haunted waters where the Dutchman was said to sail. The cost of avoiding a ghost was cheaper than facing it. As science advanced, scholars tried to debunk the legend. The most popular theory was a mirage, specifically a superior mirage known as a fata morgana. This optical illusion can make ships appear to float in the air or look distorted. It's a plausible explanation for some sightings in calm weather. But it falls apart when you look at the naval logs. The Dutchman was almost always seen during violent storms, thick fog, or raging seas conditions where a fata morgana is physically impossible. Then came the radar era, which only deepened the mystery. Throughout the 20th century, numerous vessels reported clear, undeniable visual sightings of the phantom ship. while their state-of-the-art radar screens remained completely blank. It was there, and yet it wasn't. The most reliable and unnerving sightings came during the chaos of World War II. Naval records from this period are meticulously kept and highly credible. In 1942, a British destroyer on patrol near the Cape reported a luminous vessel approaching at full speed. The crew on deck, believing it to be an enemy ship on a collision course, braced for impact. The ship, an archaic galleon, passed directly through their destroyer. There was no sound, no impact, no disturbance in the water. It was simply there one moment and gone the next. Radar and sonar registered nothing. Just 1 week later, another Allied ship in the same convoy sighted the very same phantom vessel. Days after that sighting, the ship and its entire crew were lost in a sudden, violent cyclone. Allied naval archives quietly list over a dozen such official sightings during the war, each one leaving a trail of questions and unease. Over the centuries, maritime analysts and paranormal investigators noticed a terrifyingly consistent pattern. First came the sighting of the Dutchman, and within days, catastrophe would strike. The correlation was too frequent to ignore. Its crew saw the Dutchman glowing an ominous red on the horizon. 48 hours later, the St. Clair was struck by a rogue wave and sank with all hands. A South African trawler reported a full-bodied ghost ship sailing directly toward them out of a fog bank, only to vanish before their eyes. That very night, the trawler capsized in a sudden storm that appeared out of nowhere. Insurance investigators documented this unsettling correlation time and time again, officially labeling it coincidental yet deeply unsettling. Even in our modern age of satellites and GPS, the encounters continue. In 1999, the crew of a massive container vessel reported seeing a ghostly, three-masted galleon made entirely of pale light sailing alongside them for several minutes before fading away. In 2004, a South African Coast Guard team was testing new long-range scanning equipment. They picked up an anomalous ship on the horizon, an old-fashioned vessel that didn't match any known registry. As they zoomed in, it vanished mid-scan. When they reviewed the tape, they discovered the digital timestamp on their recording had glitched and corrupted at the exact moment the sighting occurred. To this day, fishermen in Namibia and South Africa claim to witness the vessel, especially during dense fog or violent electrical storms. They know to turn back to port immediately. So what is the Flying Dutchman? Paranormal theories abound. Some believe it's a residual haunting, the ship and its crew stuck in a psychic loop, eternally replaying the final, desperate moment of their attempt to round the Cape. Others suggest it's a time slip, a tear in the fabric of reality where a fragment of the 1600s bleeds through into our present. And then there rests the curse theory that Captain Van der Decken's defiant vow to God literally trapped his ship and his soul outside of time, damned to sail the oceans forever. All of these theories share one common, chilling idea: the Flying Dutchman cannot find its final port. It cannot rest. The legend endures, not just in old books, but in the quiet, fearful conversations of sailors today. Experienced maritime officers will privately admit the sightings continue, passed down not in official logs, but in hushed warnings. They still avoid the Cape during storm season when they can. There is no photograph, no clear radar record, no radio transmission. There is only the testimony of terrified eyewitnesses and the recurring image of glowing sails on a dark, stormy horizon. Because out there, somewhere beyond the fog, the Flying Dutchman is still trying to finish a journey it was never meant to survive.